Well, McCaw Allan was founded in 1904, but the McCaw name goes back as far as 1830. One McCaw succeeded another to 1904. Robert Johnson McCaw and his longtime friend, school friend from Lurgan College, Harry Allan, formed McCaw Allan and Company in 1904 at the townland of Tegnavon and the factory of Tegnavon. Sales figures in 1904 were in the regions of £15,000 or £18,000. In today's money, that's equivalent to about £900,000 of sales. So the early days were quite good sales. One of the biggest years, which I think also would apply to other companies, is the years between 1914 and 1918, the war years, because the demand for linen rose for military purposes and tents and different products as well. So the sales in them 4 years are quite high. McCaw Allan had one strike in the 1920s. 1920s was a depression year. It affected a lot of companies in Northern Ireland, especially in the linen trade. So McCaw Allan's apprentices decided to go on strike. They went out on strike for 9 months. A selected few come back and didn't get their increase in wages. Later, McCaw Allan celebrated 25 years in business. They had a great celebration dinner at the Café Royal in London, which was attended by a lot of the London linen buyers. Another 50 years later, they're celebrating 50 years trading as McCaw Allan and Company. There was a famous 1954 photographs celebrating the Golden Jubilee with over 150 workers within this photograph, and they had a special menu produced. This is the 1904-1954 50th Golden Jubilee dinner menu, all associated with the linen trade of McCaw Allan. The menu was overall soup, Tegnavon chicken, scallop plaice embroidered tartar, hand-rolled peas, corded carrots, monogram potatoes, contemporary coloured fruit salad, Irish bleached ice cream, Irish Abbey coffee, Irish Kevin tea. Irish Abbey relates to McCaw Allan's trade name, which is related to cotton goods, and the Irish Kevin trade name relates to kitchen textile goods. My great aunt, who is in the 1904 photograph, is in the 1954 photograph 50 years later. So I think that stands out as some of their loyal workforce. Well, in the early days, they had a large range of household products. They had a large range of bedspreads. It was one of their biggest selling products. In 1 year, they sold over 100,000 what was called folk weave bedspreads. The range of products that they produced went till, I'm sure, 1,000 products. I would say originally the majority of the raw material would have come from the home weavers within the local townlands of Drumgore and Moravity. They would have been supplying loom state, natural, damask linen. McCaws were very good. They're basically converters of linen. So they would have bought from local household weavers. They would have bought that raw state linen, and then they would have got that bleached somewhere in Lurgan. There was many bleaching companies in Lurgan at that time, and they would have processed that cloth into various products, especially handkerchiefs. Handkerchiefs was a big product in them days. Well, at height in the 1950s, there would have been 150 workforce within the factory, and that additional workforce known as outworkers. People would have been making household goods, doing different processes to them, and then we would have went round and collected all these different things and finished them off in the factory. Well, I would say a lot of outworkers, even workers within the factory, would have brought work home, possibly as an extra wage earner. I've even heard of some of the women in McCaw Allan maybe bringing home linen sheets in a pram to do some work overnight, to do with handwork, and bringing them in the next day, pushing them in their pram. Well, I think that old historic name, McCaw Allan, which has been on the go from before 1904, has stayed in place. Today our phone number, one of the numbers in it is 2. McCaw Allan was the second company in Lurgan to have a phone, and our number was 2, so the digit 2 remains in our phone number today. I arrived in 1972, I think it was July. Having to walk around the factory, one of the things that struck me was how the factory was run. It had its own gas plant, which was supplied by anthracite coal to produce gas, which was then used in various places throughout the factory. In the laundry department, that would have been used to supply gas to the gas irons. That would have been, the girls would have been using to smooth all the linen. And one of the main features that I remember that stuck in my head was the whistle that would have come out of the laundry department as the girls would have went from side to side smoothing the linen. And the majority of all that linen would have been damp smooth linen because it produced a fantastic finish. Not only did they have their own gas plant, they had a gas suction Crossley engine, which then produced, don't ask me how they produced this, but it produced DC electricity. DC electricity was then used throughout the factory, and also in our stitching department. All the machines at that time were all belt driven. There was a pulley system that then was connected into the stitching department via different pulleys and belts, and these were all connected to all the machines. And at that time there had been about 30 girls sewing in the stitching department, young girls from 16, 17. At that point I spent over a year in the general office learning all the different skills relating to orders and order processing and invoicing. I was from Lurgan. I had a good family life, and then I went to Kings Park Primary School, Lurgan Junior High School, and then Lurgan Technical College. Didn't stay too long in Lurgan Technical College because my father did remind me I needed to get out and find a job. I spent a year or more in the general office, collecting the post in the morning, making sure all the office doors were open, the safe door in particular, because all the sales ledgers and everything had to come in. There was no computers then. On the wall of the private office there were 6 buzzers for different departments throughout the factory. If he was looking, one of the managers, he would have pressed one of the buttons. When I was 15 years old in the office, that buzzer would have went, and the name on that buzzer was the boy. So I was the boy as the office junior. So if George was looking at me, he would have called me that way. My first pay package was £4, 19 shillings and 6pence. Well, factory life was good. There was a lot of companionship, there was a lot of friendliness, there was a lot of people who worked within the factory. There was mothers working there, and some of their daughters would have been working there. So it was a nice, friendly family atmosphere, so it was. In 1972, when I arrived, there would have been about 85 people working in the linen department, the fancy linen department, the stitching department, packing room, and other departments within the factory. The majority of them would have been women. I would say probably maybe 10% would have been men. They come from mostly the local townlands of Drumgore, Moyravity, Legacorry. Some travelled as far as Derry Trasna. We had a few girls who worked in our laundry department who travelled on their bicycles 7 miles every day, winter and summer. We had a linen department was producing some fancy linen goods. There would have been linen sheets produced. There would have been pillowcases, corded linen sheets, hem-stitched linen sheets. At that time we would have had a company catalogue showing our designs, etc. in tea-towel form, apron form, fancy linen goods, pillowcases, sheets. So then that was sent out to all the retail stores at that time. In the 70s, when I had started, we were doing business with some of well-known names today, such as Debenhams, Bon Marsh, Harrods, and various big London stores. Raw material linen in the 1970s would have been produced by Blacker's Mill from Portadown. There would have been also some imported goods would have come in from various countries. There would have been bleaching processes done locally in Fraser and Houghton, Believey Bleaching, and different places cloth had been processed. We would have exported in the early 1950s and even before that, because our range of samples were held in different locations, some in the UK, Birmingham, London, etc. There would have been a range of samples held at a company in Johannesburg in South Africa, goods held at Sydney, Australia, and also New Zealand. Well, my career in the company started in the 1970s in the office. So after a year in the general office, I then progressed into the linen department, and I would have been looking after the dispatch of goods to UK customers and some export customers, learning what was going on within the linen department. And then after, I think I maybe spent 3-4 years in the linen department, I moved on to another department. That would have been in the cloth department. That would have been goods receiving of cloth, checking cloth, the beaderages, looking after that. That would have been processed and cut by our cutting department. After that, then I was in charge of our our stitching department. I then ended up being in charge of some of the purchasing and the logistics of the ordering and stock control. Today in Lurgan, relating to linen, the process of cutting the linen, the making up of linen pillowcases, the making up of linen sheets, the finish of a hem-stitch hem or corded hem or any fancy embroidery would be all done and made in Lurgan. Today the product range is quite wide and varied, from a printed tea towel to a pair of linen sheets and everything in between. We have oven gloves, we have PVC aprons, we have PVC shopping bags. We're now looking at various other products. We're looking at tweed products.